OnEducation's FETC 2020 coverage is sponsored by Fidgets. Fidgets are interactive USB sensors that bring your code to life. There's no soldering or wiring required. Simply plug in a Fidget sensor, write code in your favorite language, and watch your ideas come alive. Fidgets are used by thousands of STEM professionals globally and are now available for computer science students. Simply go to bit.ly/Fidgets on Education to get your introductory kit that includes a free sensor worth over $50. That's bit.ly/Fidgets on Education.
Getting away from the technology and talking about ultimately what do we want students to know and how are we going to get them the skills they need to enter, life.
All right, everybody, welcome to the podcast. We are here with Jesse Lubinsky, Chief Learning Officer, Ready Learner 1. Welcome to the podcast,
Super excited to be here.
This is
and not just because we're in Miami. That helps, though.
That does help. I've
Totally
noticed
helps.
that the sun actually has made me a lot happier.
Right.
As I was able to do that.
I think it's a combination of the weather, being
Yeah.
at a place where you're surrounded by so many, familiar faces and friends and people you're so happy to see.
Yeah.
It also helps when you get those texts from home where they're telling you how the weather's bad there, right? There's that little, oh man, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I'm totally involved. Can I Marco Polo now and show you where I am?
My wife this morning, I was showing Glen, my wife this morning said, I love you. I hope you have an awesome day. Do really good work. I hope it rains and it's really cold.
That's right. See, in a way, we're in Miami, so it's not like we're in Orlando. If we were back in Orlando, then I think I catch a lot more flack because then I'm surrounded by Harry Potter, Star Wars.
Yeah,
and then I'm
True.
really making people miserable with my social media feeds because they're like, are you going to FETC? It's like, no, I'm going to Star Wars.
No.
I'll stop by FETC. So I've been talking about ISTE saying, well, I'm going to Disney. They're like, well, ISTE's there. I'm like, no, it's Disney, but it's also ISTE. I'll be around.
Yes, there's so much to do it.
I'm getting
Find me on Pirates of the
Yes.
Caribbean.
I'm getting a little credit from my wife because I am going to take the whole family to ISTE, so I'm getting a little bit of slack.
Oh, wow. You are a brave man.
Yeah.
This is your chance to go on your own, right? This is a chance to experience
I've never been at
the
all.
Millennium Falcon on your own, right? Without your children asking you a lot of questions
Sure.
about
That's funny.
why didn't they give Chewbacca a medal and things like that. The real, I don't want to answer these questions.
I just want to experience it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I want to just enjoy it for myself, and then I'll go with the kids.
It's amazing.
Awesome.
So, there's people who may not know who you are, and
Sure.
what you've done, your background. So go ahead and share a little bit about yourself and what you guys do.
Sure. My name is Jesse Lubinsky. That's at JLubinsky on Twitter and Instagram. I'm the Chief Learning Officer for Ready Learner 1, as you said. We are an innovative solutions provider for education. We're actually working in the business space also, really focusing on emerging technologies. So this has actually been a particularly momentous moment for us in our careers because our book, Reality Bites, Innovative Learning Using Augmented and Virtual Reality, launched yesterday.
Wow.
So it was our book's birthday. Happy
Congratulations.
birthday.
Very
We
exciting.
celebrated.
Yeah.
Big cake, Carvel, Fudgy the Whale. That's the book's favorite.
But it just a virtual form of all of those things.
That's right.
Very cool.
Right. Fudgy the Whale.
Yes.
So we've been excited to that. We've been doing a lot of work in the esports space as well. So we're doing a lot of really great things in education around emerging technology with those things that are kind of in the 5 to 10 year pipeline, but trying to kind of bring them in meaningful ways quicker, helping advance the acceleration and adoption process in schools.
Love it. Very cool.
So we were just talking about your book off air. Just give us a description of it, because as we were looking at it and experiencing it, really that's what it is. It's not just a book.
We've been pitching it as a learning experience rather than just a reading experience. Right.
And it actually, obviously you're talking about AR and VR within the book itself, but the book itself is an augmented reality type of experience. So explain to us kind of how does this work and maybe your process of even creating this.
Sure. So the three of us obviously are super passionate about education technology and ways to improve learning. We tried to steer away from learning for students because really we believe it's about learning for everyone. So learning for teachers and students. And, I'll admit my co-authors knew a lot more about the technology when we started the process. but I learned a lot as we went along. And what we really believed was the trick with technology books is that, the process from when you start writing a book to when it comes out is really about a year.
Yeah.
So the technology space moves very fast. So
Sure
if you're like,
yeah.
I have a great idea, I'm going to start writing this book, and by the time it comes out, you're already on version 2.0 of the thing you were writing about.
Yes.
And so it started this question about, well, how do you write an education technology book that doesn't become outdated, that really kind of lives on and is evergreen? And what we arrived at was it's not about the technology, it's about the learning that happens around that technology. And so we developed a learning framework, which the book is centered around, called the XR ABC framework. XR standing for extended reality, which encompasses, augmented virtual reality, mixed reality.
Perfect.
And so the ABC framework stands for absorb, blend, and create. And so we believe that all the experiences that you bring into your classroom using AR and VR are grounded in those three types of experiences.
Yeah.
And so the book is essentially, we provide an introduction to the framework, and then for each of those six aspects of the framework, so absorb, blend, and create for each AR and VR, we collected educator stories. We collected about 40 stories and essentially picked the best 18 stories with 3 stories for each aspect of the framework.
Nice.
Okay.
And, from really some of the big names in the AR, VR space in education. So Jamie Donnelly, Amanda Fox, Steven Sato, James McCrary, a lot of people who people know are experts with AR and VR technology.
Yep.
And along with each of those stories, what we wanted to do so that educators didn't feel that they were completely disconnected or maybe not familiar with what goes into it, we provided a toolbox that shows how each story aligns with the 5 E's, the 4 C's, the SAMR model, the ISTE standards for educators, the ISTE standards for students.
Nice.
And each story also has a QR code that is linked to additional resources on our website that contains tutorials, instructions on how you would kind of do this in your classroom. But we wanted to take it a step further because we believed, how can we rethink what a book is? And a book is a reading experience, but ultimately I know I've read a ton of books in the past where I've read about it and then really didn't feel like I still had a grasp or understanding of what was actually being talked about.
Sure.
So we partnered with a company based out of Miami called Zennial Digital. And what they did for us was they developed 7 AR experiences in the book. So one is on the front cover and the other 6 are on the title pages for the framework chapters, which are web-based AR experiences that show you and model what each aspect of that framework would look like in teaching and learning. So if you have a mobile device and you pick up our book, there's a QR code on the back cover. You scan that QR code, hold it over the front cover, and you will see the 3 of us pop up in... so someone described it as we're bringing back Nintendo Mii's. Yeah. So they look like... Right,
they do. Yeah. Right.
I'm ready to bowl a 200 in Wii Bowling. So it's I'm ready to go. So you'll actually hear us talk about the book on the front cover. And throughout the book, you'll see experiences where we describe, here's what an AR Absorb experience would look like, and here's an AR modeling of what that could look like. Yeah. So we really tried to think of it from what's the book we would want as an educator, the dream book we would want. Yeah, totally. And that's the book we tried to put out. Even though it required more money out of our own pocket, we still felt like, we want to make sure we're bringing the best learning experience to educators.
So as a 90s kid, I graduated in the 90s.
Me too.
I can't help but know the play on the words there of Reality Bites of one of my favorite 90s flicks. So as far as that goes, how did that come about?
So I will tell you that one of my roles on the book was for each aspect of the framework, I developed a pop culture connection. So whenever you talk about technology, you always have that conversation of, so it's kind of like in that movie, right? And so I was like,
you have a connection like that?
So actually in each aspect of the framework, I provided a pop culture connection to that framework. So AR Absorb, right? We're talking about augmented reality experiences where we just kind of see displayed information. Think of Iron Man, right, within Jarvis inside, or RoboCop's display, or even Top Gun's heads-up display in the airplane. So we provide a lot of these. So every chapter has those, that's where I've seen that before, whether it's Black Mirror or Monsters,
It's a cool connection to make,
because it's the conversation we have most often. And so tying that together with the title, I was like, it just popped in my head. I'm like, That would actually be perfect because, it's really that digital form of reality. And so Reality Bites is also one of my favorite movies. I graduated high school in 94, college in 98. So
same thing.
Oh, wow, 76?
Yeah, 90, not 75, 75.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah.
So I'm a big pop
So
culture
cool.
nerd. So
I love that.
tying it together. Now I feel a lot of pressure for future books that I always have to be coming up with the perfect connection to pop culture.
Pop culture themes.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. So, what are you doing here at the conference? You got a lot going on. Obviously,
Yeah.
the book is out, and I think you're doing a book signing thing, but you're doing other stuff. And I know there's a lot going on. So, tell us a little bit about what you're doing here.
Right. So we had a launch party for the book last night, which was great. And what was really cool is our, like I said, our Zennial Digital. Who developed the AR experiences from the book, they're based out of Miami. So it's given us a lot of really great FaceTime with them. They came last night. They're actually here on the floor today. They've developed an XD platform, so a learning platform for virtual reality that they're demoing while they're here.
Yeah.
And the content for our book was actually pulled directly from their VR experiences. So they have like modeling for physics, chemistry, biology, a lot of really great VR content. So we're here helping to promote that.
Nice.
Right.
I actually just came here to record the podcast from the Pear Deck booth. We have a bunch of partners here that our company's been working with: Pear Deck, Merge, ViewSonic. We're doing presentations to both promote the book, also Ready Learner One, the company, as well as our partner companies. Throughout the next few days, we did a 2-hour workshop yesterday and have another formal presentation on Thursday. So it's a very busy conference for us.
When teachers hear the words augmented reality, I'm just going to talk about the general population. So not like mega nerds like Mike and I are. Okay, I'm talking about just like general population. They hear augmented reality, AR, or virtual reality, VR, whatever it might be.
It sounds
and they think
jargony,
future-y, kind of playing around on some kind of video game world.
Gimmicky.
That's I think the big fear is how do we pull it from being gimmicky?
Exactly. So
how
do you make that connection?
Easiest way for AR, the first thing I'll always point to, I mean, people will talk about Pokemon Go, but even if taking it a step down, come on, everyone's using Snapchat filters or Instagram. What Disney character am I? What toppings do I like on my hot dog?
Yeah.
Like I need that to tell it to me. But that's really, our lowest form of AR content, right? The way I describe it is AR, augmented reality, is really just digital content overlaid with the real world. So the pop culture reference I give in the book for Blend actually is Minority Report.
Yes.
So even though he's
That's
not
a
wearing,
fantastic reference.
even though he's not
Yes.
wearing, so you love it. In the book, there's actually a drawn picture of me as Tom Cruise.
Perfect.
That was the one I wanted.
Sold.
Yes.
Micah Shippey,
just
one of
sold
our
10
co-authors.
Yeah.
He's Neo in the Matrix in the VR portion. So it's like we
Love it.
and Christine Lyon Bailey, our other co-author, is Boo from Monsters Inc. in one of the other ones. So we had Manny Herrera. I'm not sure if you're familiar with his work. He illustrated the book for us and put us into those popular culture experiences.
Yes.
So,
oh my goodness.
So Minority Report, when he's moving the video screens around, even though he's not wearing a headset, that's still just digital content overlaid with the real world. So
Yes,
that's still
it is.
augmented reality.
Yes.
When we talk virtual reality, a company like Nearpod, for instance, they market themselves as having VR experiences, but if you use them, it's really just immersive, like Google Street View pictures
Exactly.
or that's
Like a 360.
virtual reality can be that simple. It
Yeah.
can simply be a completely digital environment. So a lot of the experiences we talk about in the book don't require a headset.
No.
In fact, Tanya Averth was just here before. She wrote the Google Infused Classroom. I know that they have another book coming out, the Microsoft Infused Classroom, as well as the Chromebook Infused Classroom after that.
Yep. Yeah.
So I actually wrote a chapter in the Chromebook Infused Classroom around how you can use Chromebooks to do both augmented and virtual reality through metaverse and co-spaces. So there's a ton of technology out there that allows us to use augmented and virtual reality that doesn't feel as future-y or gimmicky, but really grounds it in the quality of the teaching and learning that we can do in the classroom.
Yeah.
I always tell people all the time, you just, in some of these cases, you just got to use it. You got to try it. VR in particular, especially with things like, so I talk about like Tilt Brush, for example.
Which is one of my absolute favorites. And we're in the book.
Groundbreaking, mind-blowing, game-changing,
Yes.
world-beating application.
Yes.
It is the absolute best. And when you try to show people videos on YouTube, and the videos are great, to be honest, like of these artist videos and stuff like that. These artist videos that you see where they're showing it in action, and they're doing like the blended reality where they have the camera, but then you can see it in live. It still doesn't even do it justice to see Tilt Brush live.
So that's been our big thing, is how do we get people in those experiences to really give them a chance to see it for itself. So we were actually recently in Iceland. We did a conference in Iceland, and we traveled 4 hours north of Reykjavik to I'm going to totally butcher the name. I think the town's called Sodakroker.
Okay.
Great.
It's right on the Arctic Circle. 2,000 people in the whole town. They run an ed tech conference there.
No way.
And Christine, Micah, and I were actually so we had planned on doing like AR, VR sessions to kind of support the work we do. And we were in the back of this cafe. An investor had come in and built like a museum around the Battle of Iceland. It's called 1238, the Battle for Iceland. And the entire museum was AR and VR enabled, to where in the back they had 14 HTC Vives hanging from the ceiling, totally haptic vests. And we actually asked them ahead of time, we're like, hey, before we get there, can you preload Tilt Brush?
Yeah.
So we can get people in this. And when they got in Tilt Brush and started creating art, they were just minds blown. And I'll tell you, Christine, one of our co-authors, talks about how they've used that in her school as a form of music therapy. So actually having students listen to music in music appreciation class and draw based on what you're feeling, because you're able to draw using not just lines, but fire, snow.
Yes.
Like it's amazing the types of things you can create. And what people don't realize is you can actually pull those out of Tilt Brush once they're created, print them on a 3D printer, and you're basically creating three-dimensional art.
That's awesome.
So it's really powerful. But that's the question. How do you get people into those experiences to start to really understand how it can impact teaching and learning? And so our goal, as we've been going to all these different conferences, is to try to set up innovation labs where we can get teachers in there, not just to say, hey, isn't this cool, but to say, here's how you would use this in an instructional setting.
So let's talk about what's next. Because what's next
I think the timing is actually perfect for that. So
what's next is exciting too.
Right.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about what's next now.
Right.
And so much going on.
So much going on.
Like you said, this book just came out. And what is next for Ready Learner 1?
It is hot off the presses, we are not even waiting a moment, because we are already churning away book 3 in the Ready Learner 1 book series. So we had Wanderlust EDU, we have Reality Bites, and we are now working on an esports book. We have some amazing collaborators, Christine Lyon Bailey, who worked on the first book with me. And we also have the timing could not be any more perfect.
It was like virtual reality.
One of our
just happened, and Chris Aviles just
I willed it, and Mr. Chris Aviles just happened to walk by.
Just landed, just got my badge, saw the 3 most handsome men in education.
There you go.
What is going on in this podcast?
I'm pretty sure Mike and I have never been mentioned with the the most handsome men.
And in addition to Chris, Mr. Steve Isaacs, who every time I mention the fact I'm working on an esports book, someone's like, you know who you need to talk to?
Yes.
Steve Isaacs.
Yes,
I'm like, everyone knows. Like, actually, we took care of that already. We've talked to Steve Isaacs. In fact, he brought us together with Chris. So it's been a really great experience so far.
Yeah. So what's this next book? I mean, what do you guys, as far as what can you tell us? As far as
I didn't even know I was allowed. I didn't even know we were allowed to talk about it. I haven't told anybody. My wife's like, "What are you doing in the conference call for hours at a time?" I was like, "Babe, I can't tell you that. It's top secret."
No, it's hype
top
time,
secret.
Chris. It's hype time. Let's go.
Can we say anything? We don't have to.
We can.
Sure.
I'm kind of looking at Chris to see how much he wants to say. So,
me, Jesse, Christine, and Steve are going to knock out an esports book. We're going to bring you different perspectives, a diverse voice, and what esports is meaning to people, all over the country, in the city, in the suburbs, low-income, affluent school districts like I'm in, and the things that we're doing with it, and how esports can be used to really capture student engagement. I think you guys know me well. I really believe in teaching kids through what they're passionate about.
Yeah.
And so I started the first middle school esports team 2 years ago. Have been having a lot of success, and I kind of stumbled upon what I think are probably 3 or 4 really valuable ways to use esports in the classroom. And so excited to team up with Jesse and Ready Learner 1 and knock this book out and give people not only that diverse perspective on what esports is and how to bring it to your school, but also even do a little bit of the handbook side, how to get started, how to run a team, which I'm really excited about. So
I think the piece we really wanted to add here is esports, kind of like how we talked about, how do we convey that augmented and virtual reality are not a gimmick?
Yes.
I think we feel the same way about esports.
Totally,
Is that
100%.
and more so, how do we tell people that esports provides a lot of value while also addressing some of those concerns that I think people have, when they hear about gaming and how they don't take it seriously, and really show there's not only a place for this, but if you don't get on board, you're going to kind of be overrun by it, because I don't think people realize how fast this thing is growing. And, I know they did that funny sketch on Saturday Night Live a few weeks ago with Chance the Rapper was on it. He was like a basketball commentator who was at an esports conference, just like, what is happening here? And I feel like that's most people. Like, when you tell them, like, they think, oh, it's like a gaming club. It's like, oh, no. It's there's an industry behind this. And
Sure.
in fact, we've talked to salespeople during the writing of Reality Bites where they were like, we're selling more equipment around esports than we are with virtual and augmented reality. So when people think this is really the next frontier, esports is actually dwarfing it in terms of sales. And that's kind of the big picture we're trying to convey here is, guys, this is not just a side extracurricular thing. This is something that can be embedded in schools in a variety of different ways. And you're going to have to do it, because if you don't,
you're going to be behind.
You're going to be behind.
I'm really interested, though, Chris. I was having a conversation with Andrew Revelo last night, and he was talking. We had a conversation about how do you start an esports program with a limited amount of funds.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because
absolutely.
that is
That's
actually
like
the
obviously
biggest
a huge
question.
concern.
Oh,
That's the biggest
there's
question.
a big equity gap when
Yes.
it comes to esports and getting the equipment that you need. I was just on the floor talking to the vendors, and they're pitching me $600 gaming monitors, or they're pitching me $1,800 small form factor.
That's all my budget.
Yeah, right. And so it's really hard. But I'll tell you, I can speak for personal experience. The way that I got my devices was pitching them not as an esports machine, but as a STEM machine for things like virtual reality, for things like video editing. So by day, my laptops are used in the classroom with me as part of the educational curriculum for my school. And then after school and during lunch and recess is when it transforms into the FH Knights esports arena.
That's awesome.
And working with a lot of districts throughout the country, one of the things that we're finding some success in is bring your own device. Some schools are opening networks, and if you want to bring in your laptops, they make that work. And then a lot of teams are getting started on console. So a lot of them are going the Smash route. A lot of them are going. I would say we've had about 8 or 9 matches so far this year. My team. I'd say about 7 of the teams we've played are playing us cross-play from their consoles to our PCs.
Wow.
You could do like an Xbox. You can have 4 people on one Xbox. With Rocket League, you only need 3.
Yeah.
And so, they're making that work. Somebody's bringing in their Xbox One. They're playing Rocket League, and that's kind of how they're bridging that gap. But it's a huge issue that needs to be addressed, and that's one of the things I'm hoping, these vendors who are out there pitching products and want to build these relationships, I'm hoping that's really where they see their role, is helping schools make this possible in an affordable fashion.
And you know what I think you're going to hear a lot this week, and I've said it a few times, that I feel like FETC this week, is really a big coming out party for esports and education. Like, it's a big deal here this week, and that's awesome. And I think what you're going to hear from me, you're going to hear from Chris, you're going to hear from you, you're going to hear from Steve for sure, and you're going to hear it from like Constance and all of the academics that are involved in this, is you're not just going to hear, like, we're all gamer, like, we love games, but you hear a consistent message about the ecosystem from us as well, about the idea that it's not just about playing video games, and it's about the STEM, it's about the learning that happens outside of pressing the buttons, about the other things that you can do that engage the kids and give them a role to play if they're not a video game player, because obviously not every kid is a video game player and doesn't have to be completely immersed in this. And if you love art, there's roles for you in art in an esports ecosystem. If you love audio, there's roles for you in an esports ecosystem in audio. If you love, no matter what you love, even if you love sports, if you're an athlete, you can get into this because there's pathways to all of this stuff. And I think one of the things that I feel like we've figured out a little bit when we're messaging this, because I think it's important, because it's critical. Like, gaming has had a bad rap in education, and I mean, it's like push against the tide for a decade to get people to just let us play Minecraft in class. And now we're talking about playing esports, and they're looking at like Counter-Strike and going, oh my God, we're not going to let Counter-Strike in the classroom. I mean, but that's obviously not what we're trying to talk about. So that's why I think I'm so happy that you and all these other folks have got this message. We've got a message figured out, and I think we're really... I love that we're talking about the ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you something you might like is my team is 6th through 8th grade.
Yeah.
But my school's 4th through 8th grade, so I have a lot of 4th and 5th graders that are kind of peeking in, milling about. So I had a 5th grade boy. He goes, I know I can't be on the team. Can I be the team's official podcaster?
Yeah, you can.
And so now I got a kid who comes once a week. He pulls one of my players into our recording studio, and he records our podcast.
Fantastic.
You know?
That's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, 100%.
Chris and Steve have made a lot of good connections for us in terms of conducting interviews. I mean, I feel like my schedule's been blocked out for... Steve's like, you're busy for the next month and a half, basically just conducting interviews for the book. And what's been interesting in the conversations I've been having is I don't say very little, but there's been so much talk devoted to the other roles in esports besides the actual gaming itself and what those pathways provide. And I know Chris has been a super big advocate of really focusing on those pathways from those lower grades all the way up through when you talk about these gateways to college. And I had a great conversation the other day with Dr. Chris Haskell around just what the recruiting process is like for college. And he was like, look, it's basically what you see in college, like football. He's like, I mean, I do the whole thing. We go scout. We have reports. We're tracking people for years.
That's so great.
And the most interesting part about it was the part that really blew my mind was he's like, when I asked him about the scholarships, I'm like, out of curiosity, are all those scholarships focused on the gamers? He's like, no, we give scholarships to podcasters. We give scholarships to broadcasters. We give scholarships. And he was talking about a student that they just gave a scholarship to, a journalism scholarship. And part of that scholarship requirement was that they actually have to write pieces for the paper, the college paper on esports weekly. It's just like, wow, it's so not focused on the gaming. It is focused on the grounded in the teaching and learning and what we've been talking about, not just with Reality Bites, but around esports as well. It's for years, conversations around education technology have focused on the technology, and it's time to break. It's been time for 20 years, and we just haven't been able to get away from it. Still, getting away from the technology and talking about ultimately what do we want students to know, and how are we going to get them the skills they need to enter, life.
Amazing. We have Chris here. We should talk about. I mean, all of the things that are happening. You just released a book too, man.
I did.
Let's talk about it.
What's today? I think I released it yesterday.
I think it was the same day as our book. It was the same day.
Oh, nice. Yeah, man. Released
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
It's amazing.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
No, it was really neat. If you guys follow anything I do, I put out a ton of free stuff.
Yeah.
But Sarah Thomas reached out, through Edge and Match, and she started the publishing company, and she said, your next thing you need to write needs to be a book. And so I started, I'd say a little bit less than maybe 18 months ago. Knocked it out over the course of the year. It's a lot different, I think, writing a book than all the blog posts and the free guides because there's no pressure. I just write when I wanted to write, So this was a different experience. So Sarah was wonderful in helping, me navigate all the trials and tribulations. I don't know if you guys are like me. I'm my own worst enemy. I hate everything. I hate everything that I write. I hate everything that I produce. I generally, like this podcast, I'll never go listen to it because I'll hate everything that I say. You guys, besides being, handsome, are fantastic. And I'm just like, what am I doing here? But no, it came out the other day, went really well. I think most of the copies were bought, by my wife and my mom. But just getting the word out there.
One.
Yeah.
For sure.
Thank you. Just getting the word out there about how I use entrepreneurship in the classroom, because same thing, similar to esports, I have found in my school and with what I'm teaching, I started out doing a makerspace in the afternoons. Entrepreneurship has been a vehicle to really capture my kids' interest. And so, we had this makerspace, and after we made stuff, everything was just sitting around doing nothing.
Sure.
And eventually the kids are like, well, can we sell it? And then we started a company, and it was all for fun. And, then I went and got all the official stuff that I needed to actually become a company. And then we, teamed up with Real World Scholars and upped our budget, and so we made $8 the first year. We made $1,000 the second year. Last year, my student-run businesses made $3,000, and then I just made $3,000 this semester this year.
Jeez.
So
There it is.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
on top of all that growth as the student-run businesses, just what my kids are doing, what we're making. Probably, I would say, what my kids are most excited about is. Last year, I started to allow them to add a charitable cause to their businesses.
Great.
And I think we gave maybe a couple $100. We gave $1,200 to charities that the students chose.
So
a lot
good.
of them were local.
Time for Shark Tank.
That's it. Hey, a
Time.
lot of them were
That's totally
local
it,
charities.
seriously.
I had my third $1,000 business this semester. Making just little New Jersey Christmas ornaments. Something that simple, but they teamed up with a great cause in our town called Holiday Express. They provide Christmas and holiday events to people who can't afford it. And they got the marketing out there, the message out there, and they really did well. And just to see these kids be so engaged, especially, I taught high school for 10 years, to see, middle schoolers who are generally much more apathetic than even your high school senior, just be so locked in and excited in what they're doing. So I just wanted to write it down. And if anybody's interested in using entrepreneurship in the classroom, check it out. If not, get Reality Bites.
Get them both. Get them both.
I like that idea better. Package it together.
I'm
right?
definitely
Get
going to
a,
get both of them.
get a credit toward the third book once it's out.
There you go,
It's a whole thing.
We'll make sure we put links in the
Yes.
show notes for both. Entrepreneurship is something every kid will use in one way, shape, or form in their future. Even if you're not owning a business,
Yeah.
understanding the language of entrepreneurship, and the nuance of how that works, and even as a window to the world, right? And how businesses treat you and look at you, and even if you get into that sort of conversation, this is an underrated thing that your kids are gonna thank you for, right?
I hope so. I tell them all the time, I'm a full-time teacher, but I run 3 side businesses. And those 3 side businesses are what allow me to take my wife on vacation and, have the things that I have. And so, I tell them, I think it's hard to make ends meet, now in 2020. Imagine, when my middle schoolers graduate, how tough it's going to be out there. You have to have a side hustle. And even if it doesn't become your major, you don't become an entrepreneur, or maybe don't even run a business, the skills that you learn, how to hustle, how to sell, how to market yourself.
The work ethic,
and it's funny is, I had a kid, can that be my business? And we talked about it, and he was right. He said, look, I want to invest in myself. I believe that I have the personality, I have the work ethic to put out the content that people will be excited about.
Yeah.
So I let him start a Twitch channel as a
Totally.
business.
Totally. Because it's a real thing.
It's
It's a real thing, and
anyone
anyone who doesn't think so isn't looking at it properly. I all that I say when I talk about that sort of thing is also teach them about work ethic, because Ninja works 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
Or more. Yep.
Or more.
Yep.
And it's a real thing, but he's working hard. Hard all day, all the time. It's not easy, but nothing great in life is. And I think that's a lesson that sticks with anything.
That's what they say.
So let's start with you, Jesse, and then we'll go to Chris. Where can people connect with you, reach out to you, learn more about all of the things that you guys are doing?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Jesse Lubinsky. Our company, Ready Learner 1, is at ReadyLearner_1 on Twitter, and on Instagram we're ReadyLearner.1 ONE. Who knew that was an extension, right? Isn't that pretty cool? And that's our website also, is ReadyLearner.1. You can find our book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or at Dave Burgess Consulting. They were our publisher, and they're publisher for the esports book as well. And also, one thing I didn't get to plug, I have a podcast with Donnie Piercy and Jeff Heil, Partial Credit. We're part of the Education Podcast Network. It's education, pop culture, and shenanigans. So we're super excited to.
I definitely want to.
Peer Deck's been a sponsor for us for a little while. It's been we've done a bunch of live episodes. So
Awesome.
please check it out.
Fantastic.
It's a great podcast.
Chris.
Thank you.
Check me out at techtupteacher.com. Text Up Teacher on all your favorite social medias, except Snapchat, because that just confuses me.
Confuses me too.
Same.
Jesse Lubinsky, Chris Aviles, thank you so much for joining us,
you guys.
This was awesome.
Yeah, good stuff.
Thanks for listening to OnEducation. My name is Glen Irvin. My co-host is Mike Washburn. OnEducation is part of the On Podcast Media Network. You can listen to this show and many others by great educators like Monica Burns, Mike Matera, Tisha Richmond, and many more by visiting onpodcastmedia.com. Want to get in touch with us? Check out our website at oneducationpodcast.com. You can tweet us at OnEducationPod. Mike is at Mr. Washburn on Twitter, and I can be found on Twitter at IrvSpanish. You can find us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/OnEducationPod. We're also on Instagram at OnEducationPod. If you're enjoying the show and think others would too, we would be thrilled if you shared it with them. Please leave us a rating or review in Apple Podcasts or the Google Play Store. When you leave a rating, it gives our rankings a boost. This helps others discover the show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Classcraft, for supporting us. Check out classcraft.com/OnEducation to learn more about them. Thanks as always for listening. Stay awesome and see you soon.